Let's talk about the Trump supporters that are losing their jobs. Last night I was out in Chicago and these three guys started talking to me and they were all from Naperville. And they asked what I did for work and I said, oh, like I make educational content. And the guy was like, oh, are you one of those like liberals? Like, are you one of those like lefties? And he was so serious. Like he just continued to like mock me and make fun of my content. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave this conversation. And he goes, yeah, it's because of you guys that my mom just lost her job. And I was intrigued. I was like, why did your mom lose her job? What did she do for work? And he goes, oh, well, she was in the military. She's a veteran, but then she was working at this office for the last few years and they just let her go. I look him dead in the face. I'm like, do you think your mom was a DEI hire? Because veterans are a protected class. And now that they don't have to hire her anymore, then they let her go. He goes, that's so true. He doesn't believe me. He looks it up and just the color just like drains from his face. And the guy with him was a research assistant after just graduating from university. And his position was just terminated because of lack of federal funding from the federal government, which is thanks to Trump. So newsflash, DEI doesn't just mean black people. So in fact, what's happening on a federal level is going to affect you too. You aren't special just because you're white. Karma's getting them. Okay.
All I can say, I was a dumbass, voted for Trump only because of my beliefs. People around me encouraged it. I can think for myself, yes. But I felt at the time that was the better choice. Now I'm looking at it with everything going on. It was the worst decision I ever made. I wanted not to vote. But people said you won't be able to have a say in anything if you don't vote. I totally regret this. I shouldn't have voted at all.
Hey, I voted for Donald Trump. And really starting to regret my vote because this isn't what I voted for. I voted for a lot more people to go to jail. I voted for a lot more politicians to be stripped of their power and put in prison for the crimes that they've committed against humanity. I voted for the Epstein list to come out. The fold of every politician, every bureaucrat that had anything to do with those minors.
Family, a lot of white folks who proudly voted for Donald Trump are right now crying online about losing their jobs, high tariffs, and the cuts in Medicare and Medicaid, and just how hard life is getting. And suddenly, the struggle they thought only affected other people, mainly black folks, is now hitting their pockets too. So family, there is a lot of regret in white America. People who voted for Donald Trump because they thought that their interests as white folks would be met by the president. They voted fascism, they voted racism because they knew that their interests would be met. And finally, they are getting to just get a rude awakening, you know. And this is what is their situation right now in America. So family, I want you to watch this video as white folks regret voting Donald Trump and asking for help. Once the video is done, we will get back and do a critical analysis about the same. Family, in a special way, I'd also want to thank my subscribers who are supporting me through buying me a coffee. The link is on the description below. Thank you, family. Let's watch the video.
Well, all hell is breaking loose for the economic genius of this administration because the thing that Trump has been bragging about since his first campaign, the thing he swore he would fix forever for Americans, America's trade deficit, is getting worse. The kicker is that it's happening because of Trump's own policies. Since March, U.S. exports have not just slowed down, they have plunged. We are talking about billions of dollars in products that American companies used to sell overseas that are sitting unsold. Why? Because the rest of the world is deliberately walking away from the United States. Hedge fund manager Spencer Hakimian summed it up this way, quote, exports have fallen right off a cliff since March. Countries around the world are responding to the U.S. trade war by boycotting American goods and services, another penalty Americans are paying for Trump's tariff crusade. The penalty is not on Trump. Trump's a billionaire. He's fine. The penalty is on you. It's on you in terms of higher prices. It's on you in terms of fewer jobs. And it's on you in terms of a shrinking export market that makes the very trade deficit Trump hates even bigger. Think of that. Trump hates the trade deficit. He says, I want to export more than we import. Why are we importing so much from China? We should export to them. Well, the reason is 50, 60 years of economic policy that said, we want to import cheap stuff from China. We don't want to pay what it would cost to make all these tchotchkes in the United States. We'll get them from China. And so that's why we import more. And Donald Trump's tariffs are making the trade deficit even worse. You look at Canada. Canada is one of our top export markets. In 2024, Canada bought $28 billion in food products from the United States. Canadian stores are now being pressured. Do not stock, do not sell American food products. 71% of Canadians plan to buy fewer American food products this year. Trump added a 35% tariff on Canadian imports, which started August 1st. When you tax their goods, they don't thank you. They respond in kind. They tax your goods or they stop buying them. This is called a trade war. That's how it works.
Kamala Harris has a degree in economics, and she told us exactly what would happen if Trump was elected and implemented his tariff policy, that we would see a recession and that the stock market would tank like it is doing right now. And none of us listened to her. And when Trump said that he wasn't going to implement Project 2025 and he had nothing to do with Project 2025, we all believed him. And now that everything that Project 2025 said was going to happen is happening, and everything that Kamala Harris said was going to happen is happening, we need to admit as a country that we made a mistake. Because exactly what would happen is what is happening. Donald Trump said he had the concepts of a plan, but he didn't. Kamala Harris outlined the exact plan that she had to make this country better, and we didn't actually listen to her. Donald Trump just ran to get out of jail. And I'll admit, I was not a Kamala Harris fan, especially when she ran in 2020. I don't like prosecutors who put other people in jail. I'm a pastor, and I think that we should have other alternatives to punishment and towards criminal justice than just sending everybody, especially the poorest Americans, to jail. But she was the best option to run against somebody who was simply running to stay out of jail. And now that we are seeing the economy crater, the stock market crash, the country head into a recession, I don't like Joe Biden. I never liked Joe Biden, but he never did any. He actually was a great president. He actually, while inflation was going up, he passed the Inflation Reduction Act and dramatically decreased inflation. He kept us out of a recession because of listening to the experts, people like Jerome Powell, listening to the Fed, listening to economists who are trying to create a better country. We actually followed experts instead of what Trump is doing now, which is just going with whatever he feels like at the moment. That is not how you make a successful economy. And so we should have listened when Kamala Harris told us that Project 2025 would destroy this country, would lead us into a recession, would create seniors losing their Social Security benefits, veterans losing their veterans benefits, all because we didn't listen to a woman because she was black and she was a woman. And we listened to the old white man instead who just lied to us. And now we can prove that he lied to us. Project 2025 is being implemented. Even Elon Musk, who spent $250 million to get him elected, has lost billions of dollars. At some point, we have to admit the sunken cost fallacy and admit that we made a mistake. And Donald Trump is the worst thing for this country.
I don't think you need me to tell you that this administration has been the worst administration in American history, unless we're comparing to the first Trump administration. I don't know how that breakdown works, but so far, we have seen less legislation passed than any administration in 7 decades. He has us on the brink of war in the Middle East. As I record this, it's looking more and more likely we're going to strike Iran. He's ignoring federal judges. The Doge cuts were a complete failure. Elon Musk is gone. The list goes on and on and on. The tariffs are destroying the economy. And all this, some MAGA are finally waking up. Some MAGA are finally seeing the light. And today, we're going to react to some of these videos. Once again, my name is Chris Mallory. I'm filling in for Adam Mockler on the Adam Mockler channel. If you enjoy this type of content, the link to my YouTube channel will be in the description down below. I appreciate all the love lately. It really, really means the world. And for this channel, we're trying to build something big to punch back against MAGA moving into 2026, 2028, and beyond. And if you want to be a part of this community, like I always say, are you ready? All you have to do is hit subscribe down below. It goes a long way. All right, let's check out this first video. I'm blind reacting. I've not seen any of these videos. So let's take a look at this first one, see what this gentleman has to say.
All right, you sheep.
First of all, I'm going to pause right here. Beautifully said. I'm glad this individual is calling bullshit. There's also a lot more bullshit in that bill. You know, the fact that we're claiming that we're cutting the deficit while adding $3.6 trillion with AT, or $3.8 trillion roughly, to the deficit based on those estimates. And that deficit comes from, we're, just giving tax cuts to the richest Americans, mainly the top 20, 10, 5, and 1% of Americans. And meanwhile, it's not like it's investing any money or increasing spending on any of, the different sections of America, like food benefits, SNAP benefits, Medicare. No. It's cutting all of those things. So yeah, the bill is garbage, and it's splitting a lot of Trump supporters. This is very interesting, but also well said, because no tax on tips is just, I guess, how it's outlined in this bill. It's terrible. So shout out to this guy. The important thing is that we continue to push and tell people, remind them how they felt. Don't have the memory of like a small gerbil, okay? We can't move to 2028 and people be like, well, it's fine. I forget about all the terrible things, because there's a lot of them. Let's take a look at the next one. It goes on and on and on and on. And again, just like what he ran on at this point, I always say this to people, and you have to keep reminding them, even when they say these things, whoever you're talking to, your friends, your family, someone online, it's like, do you remember where we were at 6-8 months ago, what Donald Trump was running on? In the middle of campaign season a year ago, this time a year ago, June, what was Donald Trump saying? Everyone in Washington is so incompetent that they're causing inflation and you can't afford anything. Day one will make you rich. Well, we just got the Fed yesterday saying inflation is going to continue to rise. The stock market.
Yeah, I want to jump on the bandwagon of saying that I regret my vote for Trump. My whole family does. My husband and I own a farm in Ohio that was funded through the Inflation Reduction Act, which Biden signed into law. And now the executive orders from Trump are rolling back all of that funding for us. So now we can no longer afford our farm. And when all that happened, it was like a lightning bolt hit my brain, and I realized that I shouldn't just be voting for myself, that Trump's policies and EOs are hurting millions of people, but it took it affecting me personally to understand what I had done was wrong. And I think it's really important for anyone to come out who voted for him and is now negatively impacted by the executive orders, or maybe you have friends or family, especially in minority communities, who are being very heavily impacted by what's going on right now. So yeah, I think it's time for us to stop being so selfish, maybe.
I'm personally very excited for the Trump tariffs. I heard this morning that 20,000 people are being laid off from UPS because they're expecting there to be less Amazon packages, and that's just good for everyone, isn't it? We should actually be shopping less. We shouldn't really be able to afford things in this country. I'm personally really looking forward to the fact that there's going to be empty shelves at this here Target in just a few weeks, because none of the ships from China and all those other countries are coming into port anymore. And I just love the idea of regular Americans suffering on an everyday basis so that rich people at the top can get what they want. But I also trust my God, King Trump, the most, and I know that he's doing what's best for everyone right now. I do recommend that you not rely on stores. I know you think you live in a first world nation, but joke's on you, ain't like that no more. So make sure to have a victory garden for the economic war we're about to be experiencing, and be grateful that things are going to feel hard for a while, because it's got to, right? A good leader wouldn't just throw you to the wolves, would they?
I never thought in a million years that I would actually regret voting for Donald Trump. Listen to this, you guys. My job has been frozen. Okay, I was one of the top researchers in my department, and I never thought the day would come when an unelected person like Musk would start digging into where everyone's tax dollars are going. I thought my job was safe, okay? Now, because of Donald Trump and Elon Musk, how are we ever going to find out if cats really hate dogs and dogs really hate cats? I mean, we were making groundbreaking work, okay? And we were on the cusp of discovering that felines and canines really do, at their core, hate each other. And now it's gone. It's all gone. I cannot believe I voted for this.
I hope y'all don't get mad at me for this, but I regret my vote. And I know what you're going to say. Well, you didn't regret it when he was making fun of the disabled community. You didn't regret it when he was threatening the people of color and the black community. You didn't regret it when he was increasing hate crimes against the LGBTQI community. Or you didn't regret it when he was changing the narrative of who literally started a war. Or you're going to say I didn't regret it when he increased hate crimes in both of his terms. Or his ignorance during COVID that cost us thousands and thousands of lives. Or I didn't regret it when he bends over for Israel and Russia. Or I should have said something when there's literally a recording of him bragging about essaying women. Or I could have caught a clue maybe during the felonies, or the way he speaks about his daughter, or maybe just the way he talks about people in general. Like the way he talks about Democrats, that should have gave me a clue how he was going to treat people in general that did not bend over for him. But alas, I must admit, it wasn't until it finally hit that it could be my children that go to war that I decided I regretted my vote. That's how dumb some of y'all sound, just saying.
I never thought I'd say it, but I'm regretting my vote for Donald Trump. We were promised things that aren't being delivered. He's been president, what, a month now? Where's my handmaid? We were promised handmaids. I don't have a handmaid. All these women who dressed up as handmaids, who swore that they were going to be forced into servitude. Not one for me. Is it Trump? Or is this something Elon is doing as a cost-cutting measure?
Family, I knew that there was a day when people will have these regrets. Family, people left Kamala Harris because she was black, not because Donald Trump was actually a better leader. Many white folks chose race rather than having to choose people who actually match, that position as the president of the United States of America. And that is why we are seeing regrets today. We saw cuts under Donald Trump's leadership. And right now, family, many people are losing their jobs. The cost of living is skyrocketing each and every day. Monies are removed from very serious sectors like Medicare and Medicaid, costing Americans extra coin when they go to nursing homes for their elderly parents. And family, this has become a normal situation right now in America. Regrets left, right, and center. White folks crying, regretting why they chose to vote for Donald Trump. Most of them having a rude awakening, noticing that, we've been wasting time. We did not need to vote for this guy because he even does not care about us. Whatever he actually pushes is ICE detention centers and ICE programs, while many Americans today are crying over the high cost of living. Well, you see, this is the irony of America's politics. For so long, many people voted based on emotions, race baiting, and culture wars instead of actual policies that would improve their lives. They thought Trump's tough talk, and promises that America first would mean better jobs, cheaper goods, and stability. But what happened? The very opposite. Right now, whatever America is facing is one that was very unprecedented. Myself, I knew he won't do well. as the President of the United States of America, but I did not know it would be this worse. We're seeing people regret each and every day. People lose their jobs. Money is being moved to sectors that do not even make sense to an average American. We're seeing billionaires getting tax cuts as the normal, citizens are getting high taxes. And this is just but unfair. We're seeing high tariffs, which have made everyday items more expensive. The prices, of groceries right now in America is crazy. When you hear an American crying about the cost, of groceries, it's just something that you wouldn't imagine that would happen in 2025. When you hear people complain, the building of electricity, very, very expensive. The prices of gas, people are actually thinking, do they fuel their cars or try and find food, for groceries? And some other people are complaining about the rent costs. Rent is actually very, very expensive, and Americans generally are struggling right now. There are job losses which are hitting manufacturing towns that voted overwhelmingly for Trump. People who voted overwhelmingly for Trump, well, they were having, jobs. The tariffs have made, and the job cuts have made these very same people who voted for Donald Trump now to lose their jobs. And this is the sad reality right now in America. Then there is cuts in Medicare and Medicaid, leaving vulnerable people, even elderly white folks, without the health care they desperately needed. Family, imagine having to pay as an elderly person money from your pocket for you to be able to finance your nursing home bills. This is something that now is being normalized in America. And now white folks are realizing that the system doesn't care what color you are. When it comes to economics, if you vote against your own interests just to spite others, eventually the bill comes due and goes and guess what? It's expensive. Family, I tell people each and every day that racism is actually very, very expensive, because the thing that made most white folks actually vote in Donald Trump was because they thought that black interests would be continued, to be made to be so difficult, or their interests put ahead. They knew that they shall get an umbrella that will cover their white privilege. And family, the situation right now is totally different. This is a typical moment of how racism has become expensive to an average American. Look at how most of these white folks who voted for Trump are regretting. They are losing their jobs. Tariffs are so high. The cost of living is very, very expensive. The inflation is there while the wage is still the same. That means that most Americans are getting pay cuts. The wages are constant while inflation is high. That just shows the struggle of an average American. This is actually nothing new. Black folks have been saying for decades that when you build policies rooted in racism, division, and greed, eventually those same policies will backfire. Racism is very expensive for everyone. And now the bills are becoming very, very expensive. Not anyone is immune, They're finding themselves in the same boat they looked down on others for being in. Family, just imagine how come is doing bad, the white Americans right now, The policies that they voted for are backfiring. Racism is expensive for everyone, and now white voters who thought they were immune are finding themselves in the same boat they looked down on others for being in. Just imagine how life can be funny. Today you're on the top, tomorrow you're down. That is the sad reality of what is happening today in white America. The cost of racism has become more and more expensive, and they are now feeling it deep in their pockets. They're feeling the heaviness that comes, with whatever they voted for, with whatever they chose, with pushing their interests, first, and not thinking about what Americans at large would actually enjoy. So now the regret is actually loud, but the question is, will this regret turn into accountability, or will they just look for someone else to blame? Because at the end of the day, when you vote for policies that harm the most vulnerable, don't be surprised when one day you become the vulnerable. And that is what is happening right now in America. They voted for policies affecting the vulnerable, and today they are actually the vulnerable people. What do you all think? Are the regrets genuine or just temporary frustration? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, family. And I'd really, really appreciate. We are currently on the road to 50,000 subscribers, man. I'd really, really appreciate if you all would be a journey of the 50,000 subscribers that we are targeting before the year ends. Family, I'd also request in a special way that you all like the video so that it can be recommended to other YouTube users. The goal of the channel has always been to talk about Black history, Black empowerment, and tell Black stories the Black way. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you all in our next episode. Goodbye for now.